talking about electronic stalking. Our guest today, Eleanor White, has been studying it for 30 years. She's an engineer by trade, by profession. She joins us today because she says it's real, and these people are being tortured, absolutely tortured. Please check out the website, multistalkervictims.org. She spends a lot of time trying to address this issue.
The term we use for this crime, we want to be as descriptive as possible, and so we call it organized stalking and electronic harassment. And organized stalking differs from single stalker stalking the way that organized crime differs from single individual crime. They're both crime, but in the organized stalking world, there is an organized network of stalkers. And these stalkers network from state to state and even internationally across the boundary. Organized stalking consists of two phases. One is carefully crafted harassment based on life's normal breaks carried out by people in the community who have been told lies about their target. That's one phase. The other phase is invasive electronic harassment, which can continue the stalking even in the privacy of the target's home. So that's the quick definition of organized stalking and electronic harassment.
Okay, so the average person can get access to the ability to stalk someone else, you're saying?
Well, I'm saying in the electronic stalking phase, the equipment is obtainable.
All right, how did you find out about electronic stalking? How and when did your interest in this subject begin?
1980, my world turned upside down. Everything was fine one day, and the next day, people began to harass me on the street. And then when I tried to sleep at night, I was kept wide awake every single night, which was not natural. Doctors found absolutely nothing wrong, and I carried on against that over several jobs in different locations for 16 years until I came across a paper by former U.S. Army intelligence officer Julianne McKinney, who described organized stalking using different terms. She called it microwave harassment. That's how I came about it. I've been a target now for 30 years.
Okay, now there are a lot of people that are saying, I am not buying this story. I don't believe it exists. I don't think they can do this. I don't think they would do this. Well, the question, though, is it possible physically? Now, you majored in electronics or in engineering, so you've got pretty much a better idea than I would have on what it takes to be able to do this physically. So can they physically do electronic stalking?
Oh, absolutely. Monitoring, tracking, and control silent weapons that leave no trace evidence. That will bathe the target in high-power microwave and cause all kinds of symptoms. Some very bad physical symptoms, some permanent. I think the capabilities of high-power microwave are pretty well known. For example, asthma, cataracts, headaches, memory loss, early Alzheimer's, bad dreams, depression, fatigue, concentration loss, that's a big one, appetite loss, heart and blood pressure problems, and cancer. I'd like to say that although we have 5 weapons which can be purchased by anyone, there are apparently classified technologies in use as well, because what we find is that shielding only works to a certain extent. It's partially successful and or it's temporarily successful. So we're fairly confident that there are signals which are not in the public domain in use, and we don't know anything about what they might be. It's not just a matter of sitting inside a steel box, because I tried that at home myself. I spent $3,000 on an expensive shielded enclosure, and it did almost nothing. So you want to be careful counseling people about conventional signals, because otherwise their resources may be spent on something that ultimately does not work. As I say, we can't explain why such mentally ill people do these things. All I can say is that...
Now, you're not talking about the person that's being attacked, the mentally ill person,
No, I'm talking about the people who are doing it. You have to be mentally ill to do these things.
Okay.
But, I mean, this is tangible stuff.
And the reason we're doing this, ladies and gentlemen, is I get calls all the time that people are being electronically monitored, and they sound very normal. They sound very real. And the question is this real or not? So we've asked somebody who studied it for 30 years, and she is electronically stalked. Now, does this just become an obsession, and all of a sudden, every time you see something out of place, it's because the bad guys did it? Eleanor?
It does for newer targets. When you've been in it for a decade or two, it simply becomes a chore, like taking out the trash. It's just something you have to work towards, which is generating public awareness.
All right. Eleanor, now, this has got to be a difficult situation when one person in the family in a marriage believes this is happening to them and the other one thinks they're crazy. How often does this happen?
Fairly often. It is a terrible situation. It causes marriages to break up, or the target is forced to remain silent, and the only people they can talk to about it are those of us on the forums. And so, yes, it is a very difficult situation for married people.
I just can't imagine what that would do to a marriage. I just cannot imagine.
A lot of them break up. These people they recruit technicians in all the utilities, so there is no way to keep any of your communications confidential. So that gives the perpetrator a great launching pad for all sorts of harassment.
Are you being stalked, harassed, and your privacy violated? Has your work and personal life been sabotaged or ruined and you don't know why? Are you experiencing trouble with your phone, email, and internet services? Are you being denied help from governing and city officials? You are not alone.
As many as one person per 100 are being targeted in North America.
Same tactics get thrown on this list and
technological and community-based harassment. Gang stalking or group stalking, groups of people stalking an individual.
street harassment.
This is exactly what is happening to me.
Gang stalking is alive in this country, and the politicians are denying that it exists.
There are literally thousands of websites providing information about these crimes.
Sites that explain the truth about what's going on.
These are many sites that you should go and check out. Go to gangstalkingworld.com, go to stopcovertwar.com, go to YouTube and check out Organized Stalking Informers.
Wake up!
We're talking about a very serious issue, very serious to a lot of people. And let me ask our guests, how many people do you think are involved in electronic stalking? How many people do you think are being stalked in this country right now, if you were to make a guess? Eleanor?
Well, in my 14 years, I've been in touch, I would estimate between 2,000 and 3,000 targets. Some of them very briefly in touch with, but more significantly, the American National Center for Victims of Crime, they have a very large stalking department, and that department says that they receive, or 10% of their calls every month are about organized stalking, and they estimate that to be thousands
Really?
of calls about organized stalking every month, and that's the big National Center for Victims of Crime, ncvc.org.
ncvc.org. Okay, let me ask you this. What is, when you go to a doctor, bless your heart, you go to a doctor and you tell them,
Well, I advise people not to go to doctors and say things like that, because doctors are totally out of the loop. They haven't a clue what they're talking about in this regard, and are the last people I'd want to tell anything.
but I mean, if a person did, let's say they're naive, they're just new to being electronically stalked, and they go to a doctor and they say, you're not going to believe what's going on in my life, they're going to put them in a category, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. They'll be diagnosed paranoid and or schizophrenic and put on medication. That happens a lot to us.
And that could probably be the worst thing they could possibly do to them. All right, let's talk about some crimes that may have been electronically, there may have been something done electronically to create the crime. Let's talk about, is there anything that you could possibly refer to, either in Canada or the U.S., that might have electronic stalking as the background of the crime?
Well, from time to time, we hear people who explode and harm or kill somebody and say, yes, I'm being stalked electronically and under surveillance everywhere and harassed wherever I go. And because they are a criminal at that point, nobody takes what they say seriously. Most of our members do not go off the deep end, and we simply persevere and we work towards the single objective of making this crime aware for the public, because most of the public don't realize this is happening.
Let's go to Mary in Kentucky. Mary, you're on the air with Eleanor White. Go ahead, please.
Hello. I was a professional person and was absolutely the victim of criminal stalking. In my case, it didn't take quite the form of what your guest described. It did take the form of such things that I was able to figure out how they were doing it, and it's not a secret if you know what the laws are, what people can get away with. You know, in other words, what actually anyone can do. Anyone can, except in 3 or 4 states in the country, can put in a global positioning device in your car that they can read from long way away with a computer. And those are sold on the internet too. It's no mystery. The other thing is, in order to really drive somebody crazy, at least somebody who's susceptible to that, you have to have a network of people. And I believe there's that network, especially with the government the way it is. And let me remind people that the Soviet Union, when it was the Soviet Union, had that network in place. People were encouraged to tell on their neighbors and report right to the KGB. It's here now. And the people that were responsible for stalking me, it was initially the government of one of the states, because I was a quasi-state employee. I had to move. I've moved 4 times and have not been able to get completely away from it. It depends on where you live and the type of people living there and so on.
Well, do you think that moving away is going to be the answer? I mean, aren't they going to just, if they really are intent on stalking someone, if they can do it, then aren't they just going to continue the stalking at a different location?
A lot of it is where the people live. There are certain people that are more inclined to join groups than others. Certain nationalities and ethnic groups are they have that tribal instinct. And the people that have that are much more likely to believe in what they're being told. But, you know, this comes from up above. This kind of stalking, if done on a lower level, you can reach a sort of consensus among the people. But remember, the electronic, as advanced as it is, there's a lot of people that are able to be persuaded about things.
Okay, let me ask Fred, do you honestly believe that electronic stalking takes place like Eleanor is talking about it?
When you have an election pending or a lawsuit pending, or someone wants land that you're on, or there is a intense political struggle, this does happen. And I'd like Eleanor to comment on what circumstances do you see this happening in?
Okay, Eleanor, your response? Thank you very much, Fred, for the phone call.
Well, yes, about 30% of our members, and that is my personal estimate, have some sort of event that appeared to be the trigger, and that can be whistleblowing, activism, disputes over inheritances, high-stakes divorces. So there are lots of these known situations, and about 70% of us do not know.
Making the victim look crazy is probably a tactic that is used a lot. All right, let me go to Ed in Canada. Get him in here before the break. Ed in Canada, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
I have to tell you, when I was listening to this program, you know, we go exactly through same thing for 10 years. And this stalking, other word for it is gaslighting.
Okay, let me ask Eleanor, do you know anything about gaslighting?
Yes, it was a movie in the 40s, Gaslighting, and it was about a wealthy husband who drove his wife crazy by doing little criminal acts around the house and then denying that there was anything wrong. And so yes, that's a good analogy, but of course it doesn't include the electronics.
And that's just driving somebody crazy, which that's possible to do, I'm sure. Okay, the email is on the site at raven1.net and at
multi-stalker victims with an S on the end .org.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing. And I know that makes you become vulnerable when you talk like this, but I really respect you and thank you for this very interesting discussion.
God bless and keep you, Joyce.
God bless you too. Thank you very much for the show.